Good morning. I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Riza Diaz.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Groups are staging several protests today to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the 1986 EDSA People Power Revolution.
New names and arguments were presented on the second day of the confirmation of charges hearings against former President Duterte.
The House of Representatives is set to begin in preliminary hearings next week on the impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte.
Signal spoiled PLDT's perfect run with a straight sets win, denying the high-speed hitters an elimination round sweep in the PVL All-Filipino Conference.
ICC prosecutors presented more evidence and identified additional alleged co-perpetrators in the case against former President Duterte. Now, for the latest developments, One News anchor Angela Lagunzon Castro is reporting live from The Hague in the Netherlands. Angel, ano yung updates natin on the last confirmation hearing? Nakamute ka.
There you go. Hi, Diego and Risa. The second confirmation of charges of former President Rodrigo Duterte at the International Criminal Court in The Hague, Netherlands, yesterday has wrapped up, and it highlighted Duterte list, or the so-called death list, as what the prosecution would describe it. It refers to alleged list of people suspected of involvement in illegal drugs who were said to be targets during the anti-drug campaign. So pinakita dito sa ng prosecution yung iba't ibang mga video presentation na ang naglalaman mismo ay si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Itong death list na sinatawag nila ay nagpakita din ng video na inilalaman si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte parading this photo gallery ng mga high-value targets na sinasabi nila. And according daw sa witness ng prosecution, if I'm not mistaken, siguro mga 6 na witness yung sinabi ng prosecution. Pero of course, it's not allowed to identify them. It's not allowed to name them during that hearing. Pero may mga nabanggit silang mga witnesses. And according to them, regarding this list, once you're on the list, it's talagang automatic mamamatay ka. At pinakita rin doon sa video na yon, Diego and Riza, yung ibang mga video ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte stating like kapag nanlaban, and I quote, kapag nanlaban, barilin mo. Kapag hindi nanlaban, barilin mo na rin para matapos. So these are some of the videos that they showed during the hearing. So the prosecutors pointed to this list to support their claim that the killings were not random but organized. The names on the list were used in operations that led to killings. And of course, meanwhile naman doon sa submission, during the submission on the merits of the common legal representatives for the family or for the victims, nakita natin sa loob ng, not me, pero according sa sources natin, doon sa loob ng gallery ng court kung saan nakikinig ang mga media at ilang mga bisita doon, ay medyo parang naging teary-eyed sila habang pinepresenta ng victims legal counsel yung iba't ibang mga biktima nitong drug war, si Kian De Los Santos and other pa, kasi syempre ibang mga pamilya nila rin nakasama doon. So parang how they were found, how they were killed. So parang na-teary-eyed nga itong mga ilang miyembro ng pamilya na merong na biktima nga ng EJK. Pero they have to control their emotions because Diego and Risa, in the courtroom, in the media gallery, in the whole ICC office, the whole building is very strict. In the media gallery, bawal kang matulog, lalapitan ka ng police doon o ng guard rather, kapag nakita kang natutulog. Tapos bawal ka talaga. You are not allowed to show any emotions inside that room. So we felt that talaga nahirapan yung mga victims noon. The atmosphere was gloomy. Nahirapan sila na i-control yung kanilang emotion, but they had to. So yun yung mga ilang mga nangyari yesterday sa confirmation of hearing. Day 2 yun, So for others na nagtatanong bakit puro prosecution at biktima yung narinig natin, it's because ang ICC po ay nagtakda ng mga schedule no para sa iba't ibang panig. So this time around, tomorrow rather, February 26, ay ito naman ang pagkakataon ng legal team ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte na sa of the case. Diego and Lisa.
Ano reaction ng victims, family of the victims with certain statements nilabas ni Attorney Kaufman na there is no direct command responsibility kay Pangulong Duterte because there is no document, there is no official video or verbal confirmation that he said to kill these people. It's merely meant to instill fear on a certain level. At the very least daw, ang pwede daw sisihin yung mga policemen and captains ng mga death squad na mali ang interpretation nila sa utos ng isang former president or mayor.
Well, of course, the family of the victims were disappointed, especially kapag pinopoint ng defense na itong mga sinabi ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte na kill them, pag naglaban, patayin mo, etc. Or sasabihin ng defense na hyperbole or it's just a joke, no? Sabi ng isang nakausap ko na nanay ng victim, sabi niya sad sila, they are hurt no by that statement because the life of their family is not a joke, no. So yun ang sinasabi nila. So sa panig nila masaya sila doon sa naging presentasyon ng prosecution no ng merits ng kaso, pero nung opening statements nga ng defense, syempre hindi nila nagustuhan yun. It's a given naman din, of course, ano. So yun yung mga kanilang naging reaction.
So Angela, if tama, tomorrow the defense will present their case. Yan ang mangyayari bukas. Okay, so ang babantayan natin dito is because like what Diego has mentioned is baka malayo yung narrative, di ba? They're trying to make it seem that what former President Duterte has mentioned previously, especially, in his speeches, were just, parang parang biro lang ito. At yun ang iniiwasan ng prosecution na dun nga mapunta yung usapan. With the defense trying to say na ito lang talaga yung personality ni former president.
Well, prosecution had their schedule already. They presented their evidence, the merits on the case, as well as the victims through their legal counsel. Yesterday nga, pinakita ng legal counsel yung iba't ibang paraan na paano nakita yung mga victims, paano sila pinatay. So parang ang nag-deja vu if ever tayo dun yesterday dahil these are not new for us anymore because nabalita na natin to years ago at pinakita lang ito muli yesterday. So parang nag-flashback na lahat yung mga nakikita natin sa news report yesterday. But of course, for the prosecution team, this confirmation of charges is actually a step toward or forward toward rather accountability. But for the defense, it's their time to shine. Kumbaga, sabi nila, it's their opportunity to defend former President Rodrigo Duterte and to make sure that all the statements, all the evidence of the prosecution ay pahinain nila yung foundation to make sure na itong si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte ay walang kinalaman doon sa pinupukol sa kanya ng mga kaso. So yan ang aantabayanan natin tomorrow kasi ngayon February 25 is a rest day for the ICC court.
Diyan ngayon madami nagpupuntirya because of the evidence na nilalabas ng prosecutions, merely media clippings, media videos, saan daw yung documents, corroborative evidence, and statements. Pero ang explanation kasi dito is, para malinaw sa taong bayan, this is just the confirmation of charges hearing.
Yes.
Sa trial proper lang ilalabas yung mga supporting evidence sa pinakita nilang initial evidence. Tama?
That's right, because I already asked that to Attorney Conti yesterday, kumbaga parang how admissible, if ever, assuming we're going to full trial, how admissible itong mga videos na ipinresenta ng prosecution. And she said, kapag nasa full trial ka na, ay of course may an authentication pa yan. It is admissible. Pero on this stage, na confirmation of charges pa lang tayo, wala pa tayo sa actual na trial, hindi pa naman natin, ang goal dito is ipakita na may sufficient evidence, no? May bigat yung ebidensya to proceed to the full trial. So yung pagpapakita ng mga videos na yon, hindi naman sinasabing guilty na siya kaagad or etc. But no, may merit. Kumbaga, mabigat yung kaso, meron tayong pag-uusapan. That's why we need to go to a full trial. Yun yung sinabi sa atin ni Attorney Cristina Conti.
Mhm. And tomorrow, Angela, what are we expecting to see?
Well, more is the presentation, no, or the submission on the merits by the defense. This is going to be headed by the legal team of former President Rodrigo Duterte, Attorney Nicholas Kaufman. So we were able to talk to him yesterday, no, na-ambush interview natin siya kasi papasok siya sa ICC court, sa ICC entrance doon. And we asked him also kung kamusta si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, kung na-monitor ba niya itong naging presentation ng confirmation of charges niya. According to Attorney Kaufman, hindi naman daw nag-monitor itong si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, pero he updated him, kumbaga. So he knows what happened yesterday. He is updated with the things that transpired in that courtroom. So ang naging reaction daw ng Pangulo, he's happy doon sa naging opening statement ng kanyang legal counsel na si Attorney Nicholas Kaufman.
No, pero just to be clear, di ba, ang stance pa rin ng former president, he doesn't recognize the court at all. So parang
Yes.
ang initial statement niya nung una, weeks ago, hindi ka pa nakaalis, wala akong pakialam dyan.
Yes, that's true, Doc. Hindi na nag-elaborate masyado si Attorney Kaufman, pero sinasabi lang niya kasi ang inano kaagad sa amin ni Attorney Kaufman, there's a client, a lawyer privilege, sabi niya. Pero what I can tell you is that he is happy. But I also asked Attorney Kaufman doon sa ibang mga, kasi I talked to Attorney Nery Colmenares and I asked him about doon nga sa pag-involve ni Kaufman kay Pangulong Bongbong Marcos doon sa kanyang opening statements, saying na ang administrasyon niya or ang opisina niya or mismo si Bongbong Marcos ang gumagastos, no, o nagfa-fund dito sa ICC case na ito. Ang sinabi ni Nery Colmenares ay sabi niya ganun, irrelevant naman yan eh. Sabi niya ganun eh. Masaya ako na ganun lang ka-weak yung kanilang mga presentation kasi irrelevant naman yan sa kaso, because what we're asking right now is, 'di ba, sinong pumatay at paano pinatay at sino ang mastermind. 'Di ba? So I don't think there's a relevance, sabi niya doon, there's relevance in that case. So when I asked that to Attorney Kaufman, sabi niya he reiterated that there's a relevance. Sabi niya it's not irrelevant na dahil we have substantive evidence, no, hindi lang daw niya maipakita, of course, ma-divulge sa atin sa public, but that would really point out na connected nga daw itong si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos dito sa ICC case.
Angela, you mentioned the courtroom is very strict, di ba? The behavior, there's got to be certain level of, calmness that you have to display, and of course, you respect. But outside, how are things like? May mga supporters ba si former President Duterte dyan? Or yung mga pamilya din, itong mga victims na nandyan? Describe to us the feel outside naman the courtroom.
Well, on the second day, papunta kami doon, wala. No, walang demonstration, unlike ng first day, no, ng bisperas at first day ng confirmation of charges. May mga protesters, may mga activities sila dyan sa gilid ng ICC, pero nung papasok kami for the start of the second day of the confirmation of charges, wala talagang tao. But after nung charges, meron ng unting-unting dumadating na mga pro-Duterte doon sa side. Hindi sila masyado pumapasok doon sa may malapit sa ICC. Doon na lang sila sa gilid. Doon sila nagva-vlog, doon sila nag-uusap, nagtitipon-tipon in support nga daw for President Rodrigo Duterte. And otherwise, ang atmosphere dyan, Risa, no, kaming mga media, kasi sobrang strict ng ICC, we have a badge, hindi ko na nadala dito, meron kaming badge that we can go in and out, no, of that building. Pero pag pumunta kami ng gallery to listen to the what's happening in the court, wala kami ibang dadalhin kundi pen and paper. No, bawal yung iba. Tapos, if we want to work on our script, whatever, no, we have to go to the media gallery. We can do our stand-upper there. Pero if we want to interview, we have to go out as well as the interviewee. So, kunyari, di ba, pag nakikita nyo sa mga reports ko, kasama ko si Atty. Nery Colmenares, si Atty. Cristina Conti, si Atty. Sal Panelo, and etc. Lumalabas pa kami para magkwentuhan or mapag-usapan yung mga nangyayari sa loob. Kasi, yun nga, as well as the other media. So, talagang hatakan ng guest, abangan kung doon lang kami pwede mag-interview. Wala masyado yung mga demonstration nung second day.
All right. Thank you, One News anchor Angela Lagonzad Castro reporting.
Wait.
Oh, go.
Oh, wait lang. Kasi 'di ba yesterday nag-release din yesterday ng statement si former President Rodrigo Duterte asking the pre-trial chamber to waive his right again to attend the review of the detention. This is another request na aantayin natin ulit yung another ruling for this ng pre-trial chamber kasi po pwedeng hindi po pwede silang humindi, po pwede silang pumayag kay Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Kapag humindi sila, there's a chance that we could see him on Friday.
Review ng detention, what do you mean?
The waiver.
Okay,
the waiver.
The waiver that
No.
the defense has passed, correct?
No. Okay, so on February 27, aside from the closing statements of defense, prosecution, and the victims through their legal counsel, there will be an hour allotted for the review of the detention center.
In facility, physical facility.
Yes.
Okay.
Under the rules of ICC, this is a procedural issue. Kailangan nilang i-review, 'di ba? Kung sino man yung nandoon, yung responder or yung accused, this is to justify kung bakit siya nandoon. So, yun yung kanilang parang pinaka rules na every X number of days nire-review nila na dapat ba siyang nandito? 'Di ba? Meron bang dapat mag-request ng kanyang release under certain conditions? So, it's basically justifying the custody nila doon sa respondent or the accused. Technicality issues yan. So pero kailangan kasi nandoon siya. So ngayon, yesterday, nag-release si President through his legal counsel, si former President Rodrigo Duterte, waiving his right again to attend that process. But this is a separate request, meaning the judges we will wait for another ruling from the pre-trial chamber. So, there is a possibility na pumayag sila na wag na lang. Sabi nga ni Atty. Cristina Conti kasi last day na lang naman 'di ba? Sabi niya gano'n, baka pumayag sila na doon sa request nung isa. But if not, pag di sila pumayag, there's a possibility that we could see former President Rodrigo Duterte attending that process. But we will see, hindi pa natin alam. And sabi nga ni Atty. Cristina Conti, sa Thursday, tomorrow, yung submission ng merits ng defense, mas maganda sana nga daw nandoon si President Rodrigo Duterte. Pero syempre, hindi natin siya maasahan doon because he's already waived his right to attend that confirmation of charges.
Right. But Angela, when do we expect the decision, the ruling on this waiver?
Well, I think anytime soon because Friday na yan eh. So they need to tell us na kung papayagan ba nila i-waive ni former president yung right niya for this detention review or not. So anytime soon we will wait for that ruling from the judges of pre-trial chamber.
Right. We'll stay in touch for that development. But for now, thank you, One News anchor Angela Lagonzad Castro, reporting live from The Hague.
Meanwhile, Vice President Sara Duterte said her family no longer expects former President Rodrigo Duterte to return to the Philippines. She noted that even the former president has already accepted his fate in ICC detention. Here's the report.
Vice President Sara Duterte said she did not watch the confirmation of charges hearing against her father, former President Rodrigo Duterte, at the International Criminal Court, but she hopes to visit him once the proceedings are over.
Hindi ako nakapanood nung confirmation of charges, pero meron akong mga na nakita sa mga group chat ng mga social media cards, na mga quotes. Wala naman akong feelings or reaction, doon. Ang gusto ko sana ay makasama at makausap si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte ngayon na panahon ng confirmation of charges. Pero hindi kasi pinayagan yung mga application ng pagbisita ng pamilya sa linggong ito.
The Vice President added that her family no longer expects her father to return to the Philippines, noting that even the former president has accepted his fate and acknowledged that he may die while in ICC detention.
Hindi na namin tinitingnan yung chances of coming home eh. In fact, hindi na namin pinag-uusapan yun, sir. Kung makikita nyo doon sa statement niya sa court, ay sinasabi niya sa court na natanggap ko na posibleng dito ako mamatay sa kulungan ng ICC. Nandun yun. Nakalagay sa statement niya sa court na nagsasabi na hindi siya a-attend sa mga hearings ng confirmation of charges.
For now, VP Sara said she is thankful to Attorney Nicholas Kaufman and the entire defense team.
Papasalamat ako kay Attorney Kaufman at sa buong legal defense team ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa kaso niya sa ICC, sa kanilang paghahanda at sa pagpapakita nila ng confidence, kumpiyansa.
She also offered advice to Senators Bongo and Bato de la Rosa, who have been named as co-perpetrators in the Duterte drug war case.
Ang magandang depensa nila at paghahanda nila ay kumuha sila ng mga abogado nila na merong alam sa batas ng sa Rome Statute, sa ICC at sa international law para mabigyan sila ng maayos na advice.
Senators have varying reactions on the ongoing confirmation of charges hearings against former President Rodrigo Duterte. Senator Robin Padilla vowed to start following the proceedings after learning that another ally, Senator Bongo, was mentioned. Padilla had questioned the jurisdiction of the ICC over the Duterte drug war. Go says he will focus on work for now, despite being tagged as Digong's co-perpetrator. For her part, Senator Risa Hontiveros believes it's time that the Philippines rejoins the International Tribunal.
So ngayon, medyo para sa akin, inihiring tayo sa ibang bansa. My goodness. Kaya hindi ko nanonood kasi masakit para sa akin na tayo mga Pilipino tinatrial sa ibang bansa.
We should rejoin the International Criminal Court bilang isang international institution na mas nagbibigay ng kahit konting handholds and footholds sa mga bansa natin at sa buong mundo sa panahon ngayon.
Yung ano yung sinabi ko noon, ganun pa. Antayin na lang natin matapos yung information. Unahin na tayo. Unahin muna natin.
And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Various groups are making the 40th anniversary of the EDSA People Power Revolution today with the third edition of the Trillion Peso March. Let's get the latest developments on the ground. Makakasama natin ngayong umaga mobile journalist Merrimon Reyes. Merrimon, kamusta ang mga huli kaganapan? Si Merrimon ngayon ay live sa EDSA. Marami na bang tao? How's the weather too? Mukhang walang ulan sa araw na to.
Isa, Diego, actually medyo nagiging makulimlim, though pumipitik-pitik lang naman dito yung tirik ng araw, lalo na mamaya tanghaling tapat. Pero 2 hours ago, itong likuran natin na harapan ng EDSA Shrine, napuno ito ng mga estudyante, ng mga teacher from EdSource. Ito yung EDSA Ortigas Schools, na kung saan yung ilang mga school along EDSA Ortigas, for example, Lasal Green Hills, ang Xavier, ang Poveda. Nandito sila kanina at nagdasal sila ng Holy Rosary. After yan, nagkaroon ng and then then pumunta na sila sa Poveda.
Sayang yung sinasabi.
Our line with
Yeah, yeah.
Merimon, who's currently at the EDSA Shrine.
Yes,
Diba?
for the 40th anniversary ngayon ng People Power, coinciding pa with the trillion peso march against yung corruption issues that's hounding this government. Of course, several activities are being held today. Merimon, go ahead.
So as I was saying, ang kasabay kasi nito yung trillion peso march at ang sinabi dito ni Tindig Pilipinas co-convener Kiko Aquino D, though medyo na iba yung venue dito tsaka doon sa People Power Monument, makikita-kita at magsasama-sama naman sila dito 6 o'clock in the evening para sa Grand Eucharistic Celebration and they're also bearing just the same message, yung essence ng People Power Revolution, strength and power in numbers, and para sa TPM, ito yung kanilang call naman for accountability and transparency. Ang pinaka-focus nila dito ay yung mensahe nila tungkol sa legislative issues na kinakaharap ng Pilipinas. They are calling for the passing of an anti-political dynasty law, yung pagbubuo ng Independent People's Commission. Kaya wini-welcome daw nila lahat ng gustong makilahok dito as long as it's within bounds of the Constitution. So wala raw calls for kudita, walang iluluklok sa posisyon sa gobyerno ang hindi dumadaan sa eleksyon, walang calling out sa datahang lakas, at kung sino man ang gusto nilang i-call out for accountability, welcome na welcome sila dito. Aside from that, dito specifically sa EDSA Ortigas sa corner, around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they're also anticipating a separate program naman. Pero so far kasi ang pumupunta pa lang dito ilang mga alliances, mga coalitions, yung sa likod natin sila, nagpipicture sila sa taas nitong pinaka-shrine. Ayun sila nakita. Yung ilang alliances na nakita natin kanina, National Federation of Labor Unions, nagpicture sila dito and then sumunod sila sa People Power Monument. So that leaves us with the police na nakapalibot sa paligid ng EDSA Shrine. From the NCRPO, more or less 14,000 ang nakadeploy para masiguro yung safety and security ng 40th anniversary ng People Power Revolution.
Oo, pero parang hindi ma-traffic, ano? Parang still moving ang traffic.
Looks like it. Tama ba?
Kasi hindi naman sinarado entirely ang EDSA northbound. Tama yan, Merimon?
Riza, yan yung sinasabi ni Kiko Aquino D. Pagdating kasi sa trillion peso march or movement, ang 30,000 individuals ang makikilahok. Pero kasi hindi naman ito non-working holiday, special working holiday ito as declared kay President Bongbong Marcos. So they are anticipating na either more or less ang dadalo ngayong araw. Pero yung road closures, still ang apektado kasi dito ay yung EDSA Avenue, Ortigas Avenue, Katipunan Avenue, ang White Plains na sarado, pero meron namang zipper lanes na ginagawa. And so far dito naman sa paligid natin, okay pa naman at tinutulungan din naman ng kapulisan and ng traffic officers yung daloy ng trapiko, especially yung foot traffic mamaya kapag ka nagsama na dito yung mga manggagaling sa People Power Monument.
Merimon,
Liza Diego.
any personalities na may expect natin? Confirm ko lang, no? Kasi yung mga iba hindi pa nag-a-announce sa mga EDSA personalities, eh.
So far, wala pa. Even dito sa EDSA Shrine, sa ngayon wala pa tayong nakahagilap. Pwera lang sa mga union ng mga workers, ng mga kabataan.
Ako, sayang.
Signal
Diba? That
na
would have
yun
been an important, diba, question to be answered kung sino yung mga inaasahang dumalo, because again, we know ang daming personalities na involved
40th
sa
year.
40th anniversary.
Correct, that's right.
The People Power Revolution. We'll try to get back if we can with Merimon, but nevertheless, maraming salamat, mobile journalist Merimon Reyes, reporting to us live from EDSA.
Students from the Polytechnic University of the Philippines are holding a protest to mark the 40th anniversary of the 1986 EDSA People Power Revolution. For more details, we now go to our mobile journalist, Evan Tarinque. Evan, ano ba ang official panawagan ng mga students dyan?
May isang daang mga estudyante niya mula sa Polytechnic University of the Philippines o PUP ang nag-walk out ng kanilang mga klase ngayong araw bilang pakikisa sa paggunita sa ika-40th anniversary nga ng EDSA People Power Revolution. Sa mga oras nga na ito, nandito sila sa labas ng kanilang main campus. Ikot ko kayo konti no, sa mga oras na ito. Pakita lang natin yung current situation. Okay. So, ayan, makikita naman natin, hinarangan nila yung main gate, yung kanilang eskwelahan. At
Well, I'm just curious, no, Evan, kung nakausap mo ba sila? Kasi most of them, I assume kung college sila, Diego,
yeah.
they were not born
Nung
back when this all happened.
Yes.
Ano yung saloobin nila? We cannot really fully read kung yung mga yung mga placards.
Yeah.
Pero anong saloobin nila? Anong mga kwento ang alam nila patungkol dito sa People Power Revolution?
Yes, Risa, isa nga doon sa kanilang sinasabi, kahit pansang hindi sila buhay noong panahon ng EDSA, parang pinapakita pa rin daw nila na may focus pa rin daw yung kabataan, gaya nga nilang gano'n ng EDSA People Power Revolution 1, pinapakita nila ngayon na hanggang sa mga orasyon, may pakit ang kabataan, gusto nilang may parinig yung boses nila, para nga mapanagot nga yung mga nagsasakya, especially nga dito sa corruption. Ito nga narinig nyo, paulit-ulit na sinasagot yung ikulong na yan, mga kurakot na tila naging chance na ng hindi lang ng PUP, kundi ng iba't ibang mga school, pati na rin ng iba't ibang mga youth organization na connected yan dito sa Ghost Project. Pero yung mga oras na ito, ayan, nakita natin, sarado, nakaharang sila sa main gate ng PUP, kaya naman yung mga sasakyan, hindi mo na makakapagod sa mga oras na ito.
Ivan, of course, before we let you go, gusto lang malaman anong traffic situation sa area. Is it advisable pa rin sa mga motorists na dadaan dyan, na dyan pa dumaan, or mag-take ng alternative routes?
Yes, Diego, so currently ngayon, ikot natin yung camera. Medyo heavy yung traffic so far dito sa may bandang Santa Mesa part na ito. Ito, makikita natin yung pila ng sasakyan, medyo may bigat ng kahit konti, no? Dahil kasi merong kalsada na ginagawa sa may bandang area nito, sa may bandang, sa may street, no? Kung saan nga, one lane lang yung bukas dahil merong construction na nangyayari. Pero aside from that, maluwag pa naman yung ibang parte. Yun lang talaga yung nagpabigat sa trapiko natin dito, yung one lane na pinuksan lang dahil nga sa construction na makikita natin, medyo may mga heavy equipment na nandun na meron namang traffic aid na nag-assist sa mga motorista. Pero yun nga, dahil nga isang lane lang, medyo bumigat din yung daloy ng trapiko natin dito. Diego?
Alright, thank you for that, mobile journalist Evan Tarinque.
Now, as the nation marks the anniversary of the EDSA People Power Revolution, we look at its relevance today and what it means for Philippine democracy moving forward. This time, let's talk to Attorney Michael Yusinko. He is Senior Research Fellow at the Ateneo Policy Center. Magandang umaga. Good morning, Attorney. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Riza, and good morning, Diego, at good morning sa lahat ng mga nanonood at nakikinig sa programa niyo ngayon.
Attorney, you've seen perhaps already, diba, this morning, there's various activities in different locations commemorating itong 40th anniversary ng People Power Revolution. But in your perspective, how do Filipinos actually see EDSA today after, diba, many decades?
Well, it depends on who you ask, no? If you ask a person like me na namulat sa EDSA as a young kid, baka ang perspective ko is more of skepticism than optimism, no? Kasi I've seen, or my generation has seen, the sort of deterioration from the EDSA high na medyo bump nung EDSA dos and now to where we are, which is almost close to the bottom of the barrel, no?
Yeah.
But of course, when you talk to the generation before me, yung mga nabuhay ng 70s, they'll probably be more circumspect about it, na sasabihin nila, buti nga na we're enjoying freedoms today than kesa nung panahon nila, nung mga 70s and 60s. So, it depends, no? So, interesting yung report kanina when they asked yung mga college students ngayon na at least ang na-sense ko is that the generation now is there's like an overbearing sense of nostalgia, no, na EDSA was something na could have ushered in better times and baka makuha ulit yung magic na yon. So it depends on the person who you ask, no, kung ano yung perspective about EDSA.
Well, Attorney, of course, it's a matter of perspective, but there's no doubt, there's no denying the fact na, of course, yeah, we did restore democracy. We did restore a number of freedoms, but the issue is we're still back to where we were in terms of human rights violations. We're still back to where we were in terms of corruption. Where did we go wrong? I mean, we had the chance to correct everything in '86. What was done wrong?
Alam mo, Diego, that's a good question, and I'm sure many smarter people will have better answers than me, but ang take ko is I think the fundamental lesson is nation building is hard, no? Statecraft is challenging, and the things that you talked about, human rights, freedoms, economic development, these are public goods that we need to work hard for. No, they're not going to happen magically or out of the thin blue air. No, so ang lesson is we really have to become better citizens, more engaged citizens, so that we can work hard for those public goods that we want. And I think we've been struggling with that in the past 4 decades, no, na meron tayong tendency to be just active during elections and then we retreat to our respective longgas in between election, and that essentially allowed the political elites to lord it over, no, to lord over politics and governance. So yun yung that's the quick explanation that I can offer. But really the lesson that we must be internalizing is that if we really want to reform our government, our politics, then you have to work hard for it.
Professor, since you're also in the academics, di ba ito kasi when I was younger, this was taught to us in history class, di ba? Sa Civica, tinuturo to kung anong nangyari sa EDSA Revolution. We used to have the 500 peso bill and nakita natin yung bata doon in that photo. A lot of things are kind of, if you ask me, medyo parang kumbaga nawawala na unti-unti. I'm not sure if in the current curriculum this is tackled as much as it was, back in the day. Yeah. But do you think we should put a little more, attention to that so that we can, again, educate and, tell the story to the younger generation?
100%. No, that's exactly what we should be doing. But I'm not sure if we're not doing that already, no? Kasi nung panahon ko, we never had EDSA in our curriculum kasi very fresh pa, no? But ewan ko lang ngayon. But certainly, it should be part of our curriculum, as is constitutional education, kasi those are intricately linked, no? Yung EDSA people power and also the ratification of our current constitution. So kailangan talaga kasama siya sa pinag-aaralan ng mga kabataan natin from basic education to high school and even up to college, no? Kasi civics education is the backbone of nation building and statecraft, no? So if we are weak in civics education, then what can we expect about our nation building efforts, our statecraft efforts? Of course, they will also be weak, and that's where we are now. No, we are struggling still with human rights, struggling still with corruption because we have had a very weak civics education.
But what role did social media play in all of this? Because even if you have a strong backbone in civics education, let's face it, in the last 10 to 15 years, we saw the rise of former President Rodrigo Duterte. We saw a return of Marcos to power. And a lot have been saying it's because the narrative of what martial law was going to EDSA was changed because of social media disinformation campaigns, troll campaigns. So what role did it play, and how much of a role did social media play?
Obviously, it played a big part because a majority of our young people are on social media. Obviously, that makes them susceptible or vulnerable to any information that they can gather from social media, right? So, kung ano man ang lumalabas sa social media, well, that's really beyond them, right? That's beyond them. The only thing that we can control as civil society is the capability of our citizens to be critical of those information that are available, that are spreading on social media. So again, I go back to the poor civics education that we have, which includes our poor media and information literacy, that makes us susceptible to those kinds of historical revisionists operations, disinformation operations. But that's actually a good point. But the emphasis should be on equipping our citizens, who are mostly now on social media, to have a more critical, curious attitude when they are on social media.
Well, after 40 years, marami na talagang a lot has changed, right? A lot has changed as to technology and all that. And well, now that marami ring kumbaga iba't ibang fractions, like there's Dilawan,
Although nadadagan ang landscape,
diba? May
yeah.
mga iba't ibang grupo, as we could call it. But Professor, do you believe that it is possible for all of these groups, regardless of color, whatever you represent, to come together for something common, and they can all meet and come and be at peace when it comes to, let's say, education, pagsusulong ng kumbaga health, benefits and rights,
nation building.
Yes, posible ba yan?
Well, first, hindi bago yung fragmented polity, or fragmented politics. That was already present before, lalong-lalo na the years before the 86 revolution, Kaya nga very celebrated yung UNIDO, yung unification ni President Cory at ni Vice President Doy Laurel.
Yes, that's right.
Because that was the supreme sacrifice, so that nagkaroon ng parang the real genuine opposition. But the fragmentation existed before as it is existing now, Ang pagkakaiba today is dati kasi merong yung mga politicians natin, yung mga political stakeholders natin, I would say including other sectoral groups, they have this shared sort of affection for the public interest, na they are in the game for the betterment of the country. And that is what allows them to come together and find a consensus. not necessarily yung unity na iniisip mo o yung kumbaga isang bangka tayo. Not necessarily like that, no? Pwedeng meron pa ring disagreements, meron pa ring mga samaang ng loob, but the overwhelming feeling, I would say, is that we have to do better for the country. So, nagkakaroon ng spaces for compromise, spaces for giving in, and also, meron din spaces for kami naman, tapos kayo naman, yung mga ganon ba? But right now, we don't have that kind of mentality. No? Right now, our political stakeholders, more specifically our politicians, are driven by dynastic interests. And therefore, ang kanilang iniisip lagi is yung sarili lang nila, right? Kung anong magbe-benefit sa amin, yun lang ang gagawin namin kapag nasa poder na kami. Hence, we are seeing now the pork barrel scam. Hence, we are seeing now the flood control issues. Because that is what dynastic politics offers. No? So, hindi problema, actually ang problema ngayon is our political stakeholders have lost that sense of we are in this together in the long run, in the broader scheme of things, no? Which will allow them to sort of, we have to find solutions for all our problems. Wala na tayong ganun na mga politicians, na mga stakeholders na ganun mag-isip. And that is another result of poor, weak civics education.
Well, here's to hoping that, the lessons of EDSA 40 years ago will be somehow relived and relearned for this generation. Maraming salamat. That's all the time that we have, but we appreciate you spending time with us. Attorney Michael Yusinko, Senior Research Fellow at the Ateneo Policy Center. Maraming salamat.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. All right. Impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte are set to formally move into a preliminary stage next week as the House Justice Committee prepares to review 4 complaints for sufficiency in form and substance. Mobile Journal Amy Atienza reports.
Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment preliminaries will already begin on March 2. That is what House Justice Committee Chairperson Jervy Luistro said after the House of Representatives put the complaints into order of business last February 23. In this case, the 4 impeachment complaints filed on several occasions in the lower chamber will be tackled to determine their sufficiency in form and substance.
We are dedicating Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as our initial hearing dates for the impeachment complaints against the Vice President rather.
Luistro further explained that the committee will allot 1 day on determining sufficiency in form of the complaints and 2 days on determining sufficiency in substance, similar to the case of the 2 impeachment complaints filed against President Bongbong Marcos. If found sufficient in form and substance, the committee will have 60 session days to discuss the matter.
We do not want to delay impeachment proceedings, no? So initially, I wish to advance that we are inclined to continue the hearing even during recess.
The chairperson admitted that there is a possibility that the vice president's preliminaries may take a longer timeline. The 4 impeachment complaints, however, show similarities on their grounds for impeachment, including VP Sara's misuse of confidential funds, grave threat to high-ranking officials, and her unexplained wealth.
Remember, for the purpose of determining sufficiency in form and substance, our discussion is per complaint. And as we discuss one complaint, we go by the ground. So kung may 5 ground, ang isang complaint, we will be asking the justice members to make their comment and manifestation per ground. I wish to advance as well that there are grounds which were repeated or same grounds which were raised in the other impeachment complaints, no?
Luistro clarified that the committee is only focused on the process of the impeachment proceedings, and any effect on the vice president's popularity might only happen depending on the evidence presented in the lower house. Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Now at this point, let's check the situation in Mendiola. We are joined by our mobile journalist, Francis Rivera. Francis, kamusta dyan? Marami na rin bang mga estudyante from different universities na nagsama-sama?
Good morning, Lisa and Diego. Ngayon ay makikita nyo sa akin likuran, napakalinis pa rin ng buong Mendiola dito sa Maynila. Pero by kabi-kabila na yung mga kapulisan na naka-standby at syempre dito yung barricade nila, yung barbed wire pa rin ay nandito. At yung mga kapulisan nakakalat na rin sa buong Mendiola at sa buong paligid nitong Ayala Bridge, no? Nakakita rin tayo ng mga hani na kapulisan sa Ayala Bridge, at bukod sa mga hani na kapulisan, nandiyan din ang BFP at ang mga medic naka-standby doon, no? Nakausap natin kanina si Police Major Philip Ines, no? Dito sa Police Manila District. At ayon sa kanya, wala pa naman silang inaasahan na darating ng mga estudyante o mga relihista dito sa Mendiola. Pero naka-standby na daw sila kanina pang umaga at mamaya ng araw ay magmo-monitor sila sa kung ano yung magiging galaw ng mga posibleng magkaroon o posibleng magkilos protesta dito sa Mendiola.
Alright, maraming salamat. That was mobile journalist Francis Rivera. Di pa tayo sa sports. Boxing legends Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather Jr. are set to face each other again. Now, these two icons have agreed to a rematch of their historic 2015 bout scheduled on September 19 in Las Vegas. The fight will be streamed live on Netflix and will mark the very first boxing event in the Sphere, an immersive entertainment venue. Mayweather, now is 49 years old, is ending a 9-year retirement. Meanwhile, Manny Pacquiao is 47 years old and he continues to make his comeback. And that is he is set to fight Russian Provodnikov in April. Now, the rematch comes 11 years after Mayweather defeated Pacquiao.
Akari finally scored its first win in the PVL All-Filipino Conference, while Signal spoiled PLDT's unbeaten run and handed the high-speed hitters their first loss of the season. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho has the report.
Action continues in the Premier Volleyball League All-Filipino Conference. Akari finally entered the win column with a 4-set victory over Nextlad, 25-18, 25-23, 23-25, 25-22, Tuesday at the Phil Oil Center. After opening the tournament with 3 straight losses, the Chargers ended their skid behind Ivy Lacsina, who unloaded 20 points, all built on 20 attacks. Meanwhile, Signal handed PLDT its first loss of the conference with a sweep 25-21, 25-19, 25-23. The Super Spikers ended the high-speed hitters' unbeaten run and denied them an elimination round sweep to improve a league-leading 4-1 record. Erica Santos led the way with 17 points.
Tumatak lang din sa akin yung game namin last game namin. Kasi ako, may pagka-competitive din ako. Ayaw ko na natatalo lang ng basta-basta. So siguro, yun. Hindi pa siguro. Tinabaho ng bawat isa. Nag-bounce back talaga. Yung mindset maayos and yung preparation maayos naman din.
In the men's side, a new season begins in the 2026 Spikers Turf Open Conference today, with old and new faces set for opening day action at the Phil Oil Center. With the 9-time champion Signal out of the field, defending champion Chris Cross will be the team to beat as it eyes another title. New teams AEP Cab Stars and 3B Event Masters enter the league with reinforced lineups. AEP tapped former standouts EJ Casanya, Vince Lorenzo, J-Rac De La Noche, Naz Guaza, and Vince Abrot, while 3B Event Masters will rely on the leadership of former NCAA Finals MVP Carl Berdal alongside veteran player Bonjamar Castel. Opening day matches feature Alpha Insurance against AEP Cab Stars at 1 p.m., PNS facing Criss Cross at 3 p.m., and 3B Event Masters taking on Savoj at 5 p.m. Meanwhile, action also continues in the UAAP Season 88 volleyball tournament today at the Smart Araneta Coliseum. The UST Golden Spikers take on the Ateneo Blue Eagles in the men's division at 9 a.m., followed by the DLSU Green Spikers facing the UP Fighting Maroons at 11 a.m. In the women's division, UST battles Ateneo at 1 p.m., while 2 unbeaten teams put their streaks on the line as the red-hot De La Salle Lady Spikers face the battle-tested UP Fighting Maroons at 3 p.m. Kapatid, Denise Valdesancho, we are One News.
No, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Diego.
Pleasure.
Saan ka na ngayon? Pauwi na.
Dadaan pa ng EDSA.
Dadaan ng EDSA.
Hindi, I'm gonna take some pictures lang.
All right.
All right, and that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
And sitting in for Angela Lagunsad Castro, I'm Riza Diaz.
And I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are One News.
All sides, all the time.